I will forget about color for now and instead use a grayscale to properly show you where to place lights and shadows. If we look at the more artistic approach, all our miniatures can be transformed into a combination of simple shapes. For example, cylinders for arms and legs and spheres for head and shoulders, to name a few. While you will find plenty of resources online which teach you how light falls differently on each type of shape, you don't need to go to art school before you start painting miniatures. After priming the model in black, snap a picture of it under a lamp, and you'll find almost all the information you need. Of course, the light source can come from any angle, depending on the scene you want to depict. Today my light source will be the sun above the model. And some may ask, why not just spray white from above and create a sun as a highlight? And I will talk about that when I get to the coloring part of this video later on. For now, I will address the first mistake people make, which is actually following the sketch the lamp creates to a T. While this is a great way of recognizing the volumes of the model and thus the reason why I bother mentioning it, we must take into account that the lamp creates a very dramatic light, as we see here where the arm, which is completely exposed to the light, is as dark as an area where clothing is actually covering the light. This doesn't mean the sketch is wrong, as we are actually looking at how light falls on the model. But while this is in fact a light from above, it doesn't mean it is particularly the one I want to depict. The simple solution is to take a couple pictures and see what looks best. But still, I would mainly use this reference as a map of volumes, and develop the light following my own artistic interpretation. With that said, this first stage will cover everything but the deepest shadows. Remember that this dark grey will be my first layer of skin tone, while any black areas represent my base tone. Moving on to the first highlight, it is here where some shadows apart from the areas facing downwards will begin to appear. I begin by separating different muscle groups which I can easily pinpoint by looking at the light sketch, where the volumes are very pronounced. When it comes to the areas such as the arm which are completely exposed to the light, it is still early to create such a pronounced shadow, so I decided to leave the muscles in this area for the next highlight. As this step was my first proper highlight, turning the model around and having a look from the direction of the light and its opposite is a quick way of checking for any mistakes or inconsistencies. Looks like I am not missing anything when looking at the model from above, as I can clearly see the first highlight all around. While looking at the model from below, we can see those deeper shadows properly surrounded by my base tone, but there is also a bit of highlight poking through. That doesn't immediately mean that the highlight is placed incorrectly, but a sign to give that area a quick check before moving on. Moving into the second highlight, I'll be working over the previous step, though in a reduced area. The placement of the highlights will be either towards the center in the case of the areas which are exposed to the light source, and leaning towards the light source for everything else. So for example, over on the exposed leg, the highlight becomes smaller towards the center, while on the ribs it becomes smaller towards the top, which is the direction the light comes from. I will also separate any muscles or volumes within the previous highlight. Not every single area of the model has to reach the same high value, and this being my final highlight, I make sure to check which areas are clearly visible from the direction of the light source. Faces deserve their own video, but as a quick overview, the forehead, bridge of the nose, pummels, upper lip, chin and jaw are the areas to look out for. As the highlights get brighter, they become smaller towards the direction of the light. Yet I also made the decision of focusing the brighter highlights towards the top left, where the hair is not obstructing the light, represented by the lack of white on the right side. Still, I suggest you watch my face painting tutorial for a more in-depth look on this topic. The result is an achromatic version of my usual painting process, though without any sort of blending, so each step can easily be recognized from one another. Normally, instead of a grayscale, I would use a 3 or 4 skin tone progression, just as this one, which I'll use to color in the sketch. Now, by no means you need a sketch before adding color. The underpainting will certainly help, but you can get something as useful by just spraying paint from above and creating the previously mentioned zenithal highlight. When working with skin tones, those commonly used thin layers which require 2 coats to reach full opacity are excellent to apply as a single layer, and pick up all the information from the underpainting below. The exact same thing we see with the slab chop method. The transparency will also help bridge the gap between one color and the other for a smoother transition. The coloring of the sketch will basically be a repeat of everything I did before with the grayscale, though this time I'll give you some closing thoughts on the topic of placing highlights. There is nothing wrong with using a picture of your model under a lamp or a zenithal highlight as a guide, neither using another painter's model as a reference. My aim here is to show you some examples of decisions I make during my painting that can help you diverge from those references according to what you are looking for or some fun new idea you may have. Of course, things might not come out good on the first try, but through failure over new ideas, you'll improve much faster than by repeating the same thing time and time again. And remember that you can paint however way you want. While my ideas are more akin to a realistic style, if you like to push highlights in the shadows, go for it. The most important opinion on whether a paint job is good or not is your own, so by no means a paint job you like will ever be a bad one. Thank you for watching the video till the end. I hope you found it helpful and that you can take 1 or 2 tips back to the painting desk. As always, feel free to leave any questions you may still have down in the comments.